Today's deep dive is again going to be about secret societies. Well, certain angle of it, because everybody seems to be interested in Freemasons or Illuminati, but not so many are actually talking about the people who have tried to go against these orders and have somehow mysteriously disappeared. And I want to suggest you watch my previous video where I did the deep dive into Freemason order. We discussed some passwords, handshakes, some rituals. And yeah, how do we all know these things? Because Freemasons are supposed to be so secretive and nobody from the outer world is supposed to know these handshakes and passwords and etc. Well, there was a man who tried to reveal to the whole world all of these passwords and handshakes and other things that Freemasons are doing. And this is a story about him. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. I will be quick because the story is interesting. We should dive into it right now. Just a quick reminder, your support means me a lot. Press those thumbs up, write a comment, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, share this video or any other video on my channel with anyone who would be interested in watching it. Also reminding you that I have a Patreon. That being said, shout out to David Craig, who is still my only and first Patreon. So if you want me to shout out your name in my videos, feel free to go to my Patreon and dedicate a little bit financial support to my channel. And the more you are, the more perks I will invent for you to enjoy. Anyways, let's go back to the story. Let me introduce to a man named William Morgan, and he was living in the United States. He was working as a bricklayer and stone cutter. He was born in the year 1774 in Culpeper Colony of Virginia. FYI, Colony of Virginia was British settlement in North America from 1606 to 1776. Now it's called simply Virginia. And as I said, his trade was stone cutting and bricklaying, and this is how he saved enough to move to Richmond and open a store there. In October 1819, he was in his mid-40s, still working in Richmond, and there he met a 19-year-old girl whose name was Lucinda Pendleton. They got married and they got two children, Lucinda Wesley Morgan and Thomas Jefferson Morgan. 2 years after his marriage, he moved his family to York, Upper Canada. FYI, Upper Canada is where now the old city of Toronto in Canada lies. And then a disaster happened. His business was destroyed by a fire, and his family was hit by a severe poverty. 19th century historians, some of them describe Morgan as a heavy drinker and gambler, especially during that time. However, these characterizations are disputed by other historians who are studying Morgan's life. Their argument is that, of course, if you want to create a bad history or bad reputation for somebody, it's pretty easy to do. You just spread the rumor. So I think we will never know, but of course there could be a chance that he was a heavy drinker and a gambler, and you should bear in mind that, I guess. So allegedly, Morgan, while he was still living in Canada, as I said before, he somehow managed to become a master mason. And after he returned back to the United States, allegedly he was also attending one of the lodges that was located in Rochester, as we already established. He was living there briefly. So this is to point out that he was kind of into the masonry system. So this allows us to understand that he could be quite credible with the things that he later on wanted to share with the world. So the Royal Ark that I mentioned and where he allegedly got in is also known as capitular masonry. It is the first part of the American York Rite system of Masonic degrees. Royal Ark Masons meet as a chapter, not lodges, and these are the degrees: Mark Master Mason, Past Master, Most Excellent Master, and Royal Ark Mason. There is also fifth, which is like an honorary degree. The legend goes, or allegedly, Morgan somehow managed to become this Royal Arc Mason. An interesting fact about this degree is that once you get it, you can kind of go further and continue to become a cryptic Mason. Or even Knights Templar. Again, clarification, cryptic masonry is the last found within the rite that deals specifically with the Hiramic legend. Hiram Abiff legend I told you about in my Freemason deep dive. And Knights Templar, full name would be the United Religious Military and Masonic Orders of the Temple and of St. John of Jerusalem, Palestine, Rhodes, and Malta. This would refer to one of several additional Masonic order in which membership is open only to Freemasons who profess a belief in Christianity. So a lot of like religious thing happening there. And also like the Knights Templar, it kind of raises a red flag, at least for me, because we know the history with that. So a lot of secrets also coming from there. Probably they know something more than the rest of us. Oh, sorry about this side note, but I thought it's kind of exciting to explain a little bit, like on the surface, about this kind of organization. So the thing is that it is alleged that Morgan managed to get into this serious organization and got this high like rank or degree. That would be more precise term for that. However, it also must be added that no real documentation has ever been found that he was accepted there, but it's no surprise since we all know that these fraternities are secretive. So even if he was accepted and there would exist a document that would confirm, it would never be shared with the public because, it's Freemasons. They never tell what's happening inside. So I will allow you to interpret this as you wish. And of course, we will never know, but let's continue the story. It is said that Morgan attempted to create his own lodges in Batavia and even attempted to visit the existing ones there. But he was kind of denied the access because they didn't like his characteristics. His like temper, and even doubted if he had all of the degrees that he claimed to have received before in the places where he lived before. So kind of they were suspicious towards him. This part actually got me thinking, like if a man comes to your lodge and says that he is accepted as the Royal Arc Mason, that logically thinking he should have been accepted with like open arms, like a VIP. So maybe these guys from this Batavia lodge did do their research, because I mean fraternities should have some kind of connections in between each other, like information exchange, and maybe they did learn that Morgan was lying. But that's just one way of how to interpret this access denial. I don't know. When Morgan was denied the access to Batavia's lodges, he got really pissed and he started to threaten that he's gonna share all the fraternity secrets to the world because this is not fair. Like, they should be punished for not allowing him the access. We can look at this announcement as his way of revenge, or maybe his attempt to get some money, because remember, he had some financial problems. So maybe knowing that the world is already quite interested into Masons and their secrets, he thought like, well, I could probably earn on this. Well, not really sure which of the two options was he's kind of thinking, but yeah, he did speak about revealing fraternity secrets to the world. He would go around telling people that he is going to create an exposé called Illustrations of Masonry, where he would include all of the things that people are so interested to learn, like ceremonies, rituals, passwords, secret handshakes, etc. Now, besides the things that he was promising to reveal, he also was talking facts. He was saying that he had met a journalist whose name was David Cade Miller, and this Mr. Miller was very much interested into Morgan's project, to an extent that he would give him some money in advance so that he can proceed with his book. And we're talking about huge advance money. Like we're talking millions in nowadays dollars. Interestingly enough, this Mr. Miller was also, if we can say, a man from the inside, because he was also for a certain period of time part of this Batavia Lodge that also denied the access of Morgan. So he already had a beef with them. And it is said that Miller had actually held an entered apprentice degree, and he was stopped from advancing from there. And it all happened in one of the Batavia's lodges. So we can see a pattern there. All of this fuss started basically because two men were quite disappointed with the decisions made by this Batavia Mason Lodge. And the result was that they became kind of like whistleblowers of that time. Now, back to the publishing of the book. Morgan was promised to receive 1/4 of the profits of the book after its publishing. And the main money for this project came from this journalist named Miller that I already mentioned before. Also, there was Morgan's landlord by the name John David and a man named Russell Dyer. So they had a written agreement, and the investment in the money of that time for the project was around $500,000 US. So nowadays, if we convert, it would be like millions of dollars. Of course, the lodges were not happy about this project that Morgan and Miller were creating. First of all, if it's true, then this is not a good thing for them, even though definitely they would deny it. Secondly, if it's not true, it's still a bad reputation. Not that they care, but still, this was not a very pleasant feeling for the Batavia Lodge and the Masonry movement in general. From there, allegedly, the Freemasons started to corner Morgan in any possible way so that he would not publish the book. So in a local newspaper published in Canandaigua, I am not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, New York, from the year 1826, August 9, the message was published, and you can all guess who created it and what was the purpose. So the message said that if a person calling himself William Morgan maybe somehow manages to enter the fraternity, you have to be extra careful, especially if you are Freemasons. The last time Morgan was seen in the town was in May, and from now on, his activities will be under surveillance. Morgan is a dangerous man, and there are not many people who would like to see Captain Morgan again. So they were already spreading messages for the other fraternity brothers to see that Morgan might be a little bit dangerous for them, so that they don't speak to him, don't share anything related to Masonry, because I guess at this point they were a little bit scared, though, that Morgan might reveal something that shouldn't be revealed. Yeah, probably you caught the name of Captain Morgan in that message, so I want to elaborate on that one, because Captain Morgan, for me personally, kind of sounds like a bottle of rum, Captain Morgan. The thing about Captain Morgan is that there are no historical documents or real proof that this Morgan was actually a captain, that he had this title. Between friends, he was saying that he did hold this title of captain because he had fought in the War of 1812 between United States and when they were fighting against United Kingdom. But as I said, nobody can prove that, so he might as well be lying about that. So I just wanted to explain why he was referred to as Captain Morgan. No relation to Ram. Just to be clear. Now, we already see the controversial pattern of this story. From one side, we have this person who was refused to enter the lodges, who has these titles. And from the other side, the same person seems kind of prone to lying, probably, we have no proof that he was in war and captain, as he said. And we really don't have any proof that he was really part of all of these high masonry chapters and lodges that he was saying, although we also cannot prove that because they're all secretive. So yeah, just hold on. The story goes further and it gets more complicated and more wilder. Now, to paint a picture of that time, people were already talking about Freemasons and their secrets. And there were already books published talking about Freemason secrets in Europe, and many of them were even translated and available in the United States. But they did not bother the fraternity so much because all of that was allegedly. That was until Morgan appeared with his plan to reveal all of the passwords. I guess he was the first man who got Freemasons really worried. Now, in general, Morgan more pissed off like the local lodge of Batavia that consisted of all of the most influential people in that area. This lodge consisted of 5 judges, 6 doctors, the sheriff, and the head of the community. And they seriously started to think about and act upon some kind of things that would stop Morgan from publishing this book. So, having all of these influential people from Batavia in the lodge, they fabricated a case on Morgan saying that he had stolen a shirt and a tie, and this got him arrested. Obviously, when you are in the prison, you cannot publish or write a book, so this was done with the purpose. When his partner in crime, let's say like that, Mr. Miller learned that Morgan is in jail, he immediately came, paid the money to get him out, so Morgan was out again. But it didn't take a lot of time until, again, Morgan had to face some difficulties. So he ended up in jail again. So this time they were saying that Morgan had not paid a bill to a certain tavern where he was entertaining himself, and he left with without paying this debt. And this debt was literally like $2, but it was enough to put him into a jail again. So they were really determined to somehow get rid of Morgan. According to the laws, because of the crime he committed, namely had a debt in a tavern, he would be held in debtor's prison until a restitution was made. On the next night, allegedly, 4 Freemasons appeared in the jail and took Morgan. They placed him in a carriage and disappeared. It is said that before he entered this carriage, he was screaming, "Murder!" After this, nobody saw Morgan in Batavia again. And this is where the story of a simple bricklayer, stonecutter, became a legend of a person who faced the Freemasons. And so, he was in jail. He was allegedly taken away. What really happened there? Morgan's friend Miller, who was also involved in this book project, spreaded thousands of messages where he said that Morgan possibly is kidnapped, and anyone who knows any kind of information about Morgan's whereabouts should immediately contact him. Now, but to get back to this kidnapping night, what is known that, of course, there was a carriage. People saw it. They took Morgan in, and later on, allegedly, this carriage was seen in Fort Niagara. From there, legends vary what actually happened afterwards, but we'll look into some of the theories and facts, and maybe you will have an opinion what could have actually happened to Morgan after that. So one of the most common theories is that after this carriage reached Niagara River, the Freemasons put Morgan on the boat. So, and once this boat reached the middle of the river, they would allegedly cut his throat and throw him into Niagara Falls. Rumor has it that also his tongue was cut out, and these rumors were talking that Morgan's body was buried in the sand of Lake Ontario. Important note, if you watched my Freemason deep dive video, then you remember that something like this was included in the Freemason oath. There was something about keeping the secrets, and if they speak speak out or reveal the truth to anyone who doesn't belong to Freemasons. They agree that their tongue is cut out, their throat is slit, and they are thrown into the waters to die. And if you watch my previous video about Freemasons, you know that the part that I was talking about, this oath, was actually taken from the Morgan's book. So, pretty suspicious. This might have happened. However, if we look to this scenario from a logical perspective, I don't really feel like smart people like Freemasons would involve in this kind of sloppy murder. That is, of course, if they did it. I'm not saying, I'm just talking about the legend that says that they did it. And why I'm thinking that this kind of like getting rid of a person is pretty sloppy. I think like that because if you want somebody to disappear from the surface of the earth, you would make sure that there is no chance that they really appear somewhere. Because, like, if you throw a body into the waters of the river or leave it in a lake, whatever was the scenario, there is a very high possibility that at one point the body would reveal itself somewhere on some kind of coast and it can be recognized. And speaking about bodies that appear on the coasts, there was actually one body that floated out on the coasts of Lake Ontario in the year 1827. People were sure that it is Morgan, and at the end, they also buried him as being Morgan. However, a little bit of time passed and a woman appeared, and she said that actually this body belongs to her husband who went missing. So he was a Canadian. His name was Timothy Munro. And how she recognized him? Well, according to the clothing, because this guy who was washed out on the coast of Lake Ontario, the clothing that he was wearing was exactly the same as her husband's clothing that he was wearing on the night when he went missing. So I don't really think that it was actually Morgan, but he had already been buried as Morgan, so it, I guess, stayed like that. Then there is another version of what happened. So allegedly they kind of Morgan. Yes. And then they found a huge tree. They would dig out this tree with all of its roots. And in the pit that was created from that, they put Morgan's body inside, put the tree on top so that the tree would grow on top of him. And this is where he was buried. Important note to continue again, and if you watch my previous video, this again creates some kind of parallels with another legend related to Freemasonry, namely Hiram Abiff. Remember, there was also the part where he was kind of buried under a cassia tree. But I don't think that this would be the case, since Hiram Abiff legend for Freemasons is like a sacred thing, and they wouldn't put a traitor under a tree like that. But, this is one of the versions. New York Governor David Clinton, who was also a Mason, offered a $1,000 reward for information about Morgan's whereabouts, but it was never claimed. I don't know what was the idea behind it. Maybe he wanted to distract attention and show, like, see, I'm also interested in finding him. So me being a Mason, I'm not involved, but this is what happened. And there were no results from it. In 1848, Henry L. Vallis allegedly confessed on his deathbed to taking part in Morgan's murder, a purported event recounted in Chapter 2 of Reverend C.G. Finney's anti-Masonic book, published in the year 1869. Vallis's confession plays a very important role, and it contributed to the public's outrage targeted towards Freemasons. And it's also served and contributed a lot into the formation of anti-Masonic party. However, the authenticity of Welles's confession and also the exact role into this Morgan's disappearance has always been a historical debate. Nobody could really definitely prove it. So we're going to leave it like that because we don't have any real proof. But yeah, that's a part of one of the narratives of that time. Then there is also another rumor about what really happened with Morgan after he was put into this carriage together with those 4 Freemasons that led somewhere. There is a theory that Morgan was offered by Freemasons a lot of money. They offered him to move to Albany in Canada, assume a new identity, and they would promise him to give a lot of money so that he could just live there, lay low, and never open his mouth. Another version suggests, on the same note, that he was offered to move and assume new identity, but this story says that he was offered to move to Cayman Islands. And rumor has it that he moved there, and at the end, somehow he managed to be hanged there as a pirate. Back to Captain Morgan rum. Not sure if it really happens, but it really makes sense because, people are always tempted by money. Especially if they're a little bit in money difficulties in their lives. So if they offered him a huge amount of money, new life, new identity, there is a high chance that he could have accepted that. If we assume that he was really dedicated to his purpose to unmask Freemasons and tell everybody about what they're actually doing, then I have no doubt that he would have denied even he was offered this kind of money. Now back to the main question. Did Miller publish the book? Yes, he did. In the year 1826, he published the book called Illustrations of Freemasonry that he allegedly wrote based on Morgan's notes. This book became very popular since people already knew about the story in regards to Morgan's disappearance, and the discontent towards Freemasons was only increasing during that time. And so this is the beginning of something that was called anti-Masonic movement. In a little town 12 miles away from Batavia, a prominent priest publicly exposed the Freemasons. He named the fraternity a dark, demoralizing, blasphemous, deathly, anti-Republican, and anti-Christian, something that opposes God and people's welfare. The downfall of Masons had started. People were really outraged and they demanded to find the people who kidnapped Morgan. And this actually at the end also happened. And all the prominent people who were part of this Mason Lodge had to come out and publicly condemn this action so that they would look better in the eyes of the public. But this didn't really help. For example, Eli Bruce, the sheriff of Niagara County and also a Mason, was removed from office and tried for his involvement in Morgan's disappearance. He served 28 months in prison after being convicted of conspiracy for his role in kidnapping Morgan and holding him against his will before his disappearance. 3 other Masons, Lawton Lawson, Nicholas Chesbrough, and Edward Sawyer, were convicted of taking part in the kidnapping and served sentences. Other Batavia Masons were tried and acquitted. In total, 54 Masons were indicted for Morgan's disappearance in Batavia, but since Morgan's body had not been found, they couldn't really give him and tie a lot to these people. So at the end, they just had a little punishment for kidnapping, and that was all they received for this. So the result of all of this, unmasking of the people who actually did was not really that impactful towards the Masons themselves who were involved, because at the end of the day, yes, they did not deny that they kidnapped him, but they did deny that they had gotten rid of him, if you know what I mean, because like nobody could actually prove that. And they were just pushing forward this theory that, yes, we took him, but we also gave him money to just go and disappear from the surface of the earth with a new identity. So end of the story. So what we get from this story is that this story about Morgan and his kidnapping was pretty local, mostly happening in Batavia's lodges, and concerned mostly their activities. On the one hand, Batavia Lodge could have said no and deny access to a member to their lodge if they felt like. There's nothing wrong, in my opinion, to that. And also, like, Morgan could have reacted in a different way. Like, normally just accept there are also other lodges, go to those and try there. But he would start this, like, a campaign walking around and threatening to share the secrets, like, stir up the air and spread the hatred. So both of the parts have some logical explanations of the scenarios. So I don't know what really happened, but like a person went missing, no body is found. And this really looked pretty shady with how they were attempting him to put into the jail without really like a real reason. And also, why would you come in the middle of a night and kidnap a guy? So suspicious. Protests against Freemasons took place in New York and the neighboring states, but all Masons were under a cloud of suspicion. They were despised. Any high-ranked people like ministers, teachers, jurors, etc., who were part of Masons were asked to leave their posts. On the streets, when recognized, people could call them names. This was the consequence of this one story that took place in Batavia. Many influential people who were part of Masons thought that it is better to leave the organization to save their reputation. Even the sixth president of the United States, John Quincy Adams, in his 1828 campaign said that he believes that Masons should be forever forbidden. He added, and I will tell in my own words, that Freemason as organization is sinister and full of errors at its core, and that it is a family of devils that cannot be able to turn into something good. It all started with like generalizing, targeting only Masons, but afterwards they went after all the secret societies and organizations. Anyways, this definitely created some damage to the power that Masons were holding before, because the anti-Masonic movement resulted in many elections to go to the people who were not related to Masons or any secret societies. In 1832, the anti-Masonic party fielded William Wyatt as its presidential candidate, and they received Vermont's 7 electoral votes. By 1835, the party's influence decreased drastically everywhere but Pennsylvania, as other issues such as slavery became the focus of national attention. In the year 1847, John Quincy Adams published a book titled Letters on the Masonic Institution that criticized the Mason secret society. This became widely distributed and popular. It basically consists of a series of letters written by John Quincy Adams on the views of Freemasonry. The letters address various aspects of the Masonic institution, including its oaths, penalties, and secrets. Adams critically examines these elements and their implications. He also talks about Morgan, his intentions to unmask Freemasons, and his disappearance. The book has received mixed reviews, with some readers finding it valuable for its historical and cultural insights, while others have noted issues with the completeness or condition of certain editions. However, scholars consider the work culturally significant and part of the historical record of American society and Freemasonry. Remember during the Freemason deep dive, my previous video, I told you that Mormons also had adopted some of the Mason rituals and traditions into their lives, mainly because Joseph Smith was also Mormon. Well, because of this, Mormons also received a fair share of hatred during this anti-Masonic time. This is not the most interesting part of it. Remember, Morgan had a wife. Yeah. So, Morgan's wife, let me spill the tea about her and her relation to Mormons. So, Morgan's widow, Lucinda Pendleton Morgan, allegedly in the year 1830 married George W. Harris of Batavia, a silversmith who was 20 years older. After getting married, they allegedly moved to Midwest and became Mormons. Now, listen to this. In the year 1837, some historians say that Lucinda Pendleton Morgan Harris had become one of the plural wives of Joseph Smith, the founder of Latter-day Saint movement. Damn, Lucy! You're kind of betraying your husband wherever he is, alive or dead. So she allegedly still continued to live with Harris while being also this wife of Joseph Smith. And she and her husband, the new husband Harris, were sealed. Kind of Mormon ritual. I'm not going to dive into that. And the marriage did not last. In the year 1860, they separated. And after Harris died, she left Mormons and allegedly joined Catholic Sisters of Charity in Memphis, Tennessee, and worked in an asylum. Yeah, so that's about Morgan's widow, if you're wondering what happened to her after Morgan disappeared. There was indeed some development in finding Morgan's body. In June of the year 1881, a grave was discovered in the quarry about 2 miles south of the Indian reservation, Pembroke, New York. So what they found in this grave was bones and a metal tobacco box. Other items that were found in this grave also included a ring that had initials VM. So if we want to interpret it like that, it might signify that it belonged to William Morgan. There were also critics to this find, and they suggested that the alleged discovery of the bones and other artifacts was intentionally timed because it coincided with the effort to construct a memorial to Morgan. And this might have been like a stunt to create some kind of publicity for creation of this monument. Anyways, I didn't find any documentations or pictures about how this find actually looked, and no bones, and none of the traces of the ring. Maybe I couldn't just find it, but I'm pretty good at finding things that I couldn't find. If somebody has seen any kind of articles or whatever about this, you can share that with me in the comments, put a link or send me some pictures, but I couldn't find. So it might have been also a publicity stunt. I don't know. But if they indeed found these bones and this ring, this might have been also Morgan's. Who knows? But a fact remains a fact. At the end, in the year 1882, September 13th, there was a new memorial erected for William Morgan. The National Christian Association, a group opposed to secret societies, commissioned and erected a statue in memoriam to Morgan in the Batavia Cemetery in Batavia, New York, where Timothy Monroe's body had been buried. And that's the most funny part, because this is the body that was recognized as not being Morgan's body by a wife of that person to whom actually this body belongs, but still they erect monument on this grave to William Morgan. This is pretty weird, but okay. The number of Freemason members drastically reduced during that time. But with time, kind of this hatred started to decrease and wore out. So Freemasons still maintained and survived this crisis and are still operating, as we all know. During centuries, Freemasons got to receive accusations of being the initiators or creators of many world-changing or people-changing events, like starting from being threat to the crown of UK, or starting French Revolution, or even like being Jack Ripper. I don't know what's the truth, but people have this kind of inner feeling that there is something dark about Freemasons, and we should be careful about how we approach them. And I think subconsciously we do understand that there is no real way how you can fight them and get rid of them. Anyways, guys, this is the story of William Morgan, the guy who attempted to reveal the secrets of Freemasons, the guy who kind of inspired this book, on whose facts I was pretty much relying when I was talking about the passwords and symbols in my previous Freemason deep dive video. So you know from where is this coming. Everything related to Freemasons or unmasking them is so complicated and so like controversial that you cannot really understand what is really a fact and what is not. And that's the world of the secret societies. This is why we call them secret societies. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video. It was more like a story time rather than unmasking something. But I mean, we had to switch a little bit the mood because lately all the videos are so serious. So this was a little bit more of like a retelling you the legend. Let me know in the comments what you think about the story. Have you heard about it before? Maybe there's something you want to add that you know. That being said, I'm so happy to see that my subscriber number is going up. I don't know what will be the number by the moment that I'm sharing this video, that I'm going public with this video, but on the moment that I'm recording, I'm missing only like 7 people to get 3,000 subscribers, and I'm so happy about that. It's like unbelievable. Of course, if we compare to like huge influencers, that's nothing, but for me, it's a lot. And I do appreciate each and every of you. Just remember, your support means a lot, even if it's just a like, a comment, or a subscription. I'm so glad that you are here and that you are a curious cat just like me. And if you want to support me with some finances, here's also my Patreon. That being said, I wish you an amazing day. Stay curious, stay happy. See you next time.